Without further ado, I am going to introduce our keynote speaker. I am personally very excited about this one as an amateur woodworker myself. Our keynote today is going to be Mr. Bryan McCoy, who was born in Galveston, Texas, and graduated from Ball High School in 1972, so very close to the area that I grew up. He graduated from Texas Tech University in 1975 with a BBA in finance. Bryan married his high school sweetheart with Tanya Lane in 1976, and they have 2 grown children, both married, and 4 grandchildren. And I know you're loving that. You get to spoil them and then send them home. Bryan has been actively involved with McCoy's from the age of 17. Yard hand, a truck driver, floor sales, assistant store manager, merchandise manager, vice president, co-president, CEO, and currently chairman of the board are all positions he has held during the past 53 years. And that's kind of the way to come up, isn't it? To learn from the ground up. McCoy's building supply is privately held by Bryan's family and operates in 90 locations in 3 states. The McCoy team serves independent home builders, repair, remodel contractors, and project-oriented do-it-yourselfers like me as targeted customers. Bryan serves as the president of the board of directors of the Emmett and Miriam McCoy College of Business Development Foundation at Texas State University. Bryan was selected for the Samaritan Center's Ethics in Business Award in Austin in 2003. The San Marcos Chamber of Commerce chose him as Business Person of the Year in 2004. In 2006, Bryan was honored as a distinguished alumnus of the Rawls College of Business Administration, and in 2012 as a distinguished alumnus of Texas Tech University. In 2022, he received the Denise M. Troth Outstanding Leadership Award from Texas State University. Personal interests include traveling with Watona, reading, swimming, hiking, and perhaps best of all, being Gramps. Please help me welcome Bryan McCoy to the stage.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It sure is good to be here, and thank you, Bryan, for that introduction. It's fun to be in a room here that's filled with business people and customers, I might add, and certainly I appreciate all the support that we business people get, not just from our chambers, but the governor's office and such. Just glad to be here, and by the way, we just live, the way the crow flies, on the other side of the Blanco River, which is right over there, about a half a mile, so this is our neighborhood for sure. The title of my talk today is Business as Unusual, and I guess I really want to get a little bit to the punchline, and that would be that for us at least, business as unusual means we're going to put people first, and as it relates to any size business, that's got to be a competitive advantage. Let me give you a little idea of our story. My grandfather, Frank, started us out as McCoy Roofing Company in 1927. So we are 2 years away, our family, of celebrating a 100-year history, which is so special for sure. This is the business that my father, Emmett, grew up in. And in fact, he was part of that greatest generation that grew up in the 30s and then went off to war in World War II. In fact, I will tell you that this is just a photograph of my great uncle, Charlie. That's my grandfather, Frank McCoy, in the middle, who was in the Merchant Marines. My dad served in the Army in World War II. And my dad was really, truly the entrepreneur of our family, because while he grew up in McCoy Roofing Company, it was post-World War II, as there was a hot economy in the nation, and the do-it-yourself industry was kind of just in its creation. My dad started selling building products as a sideline to our roofing company. And his formula there, as he started a new company, McCoy's Building Supply, his thought was, we're going to sell, buy direct, sell at essentially wholesale prices, and serve both repair and remodel contractors and homeowners. And just like a lot of businesses, every once in a while, some significant event comes up in the history of any business. It certainly was true for our family business, and that was Hurricane Carla in 1961. We had 2 McCoy Building Supply locations and still the roofing company there. And the business just blew up. And as a result of that, kind of two events happened. First off, my dad just worked so hard for a year that my mom finally convinced him the following summer to take a vacation. And so my parents took the four kids in our family, two of my cousins, and drove up to Landa Park in New Braunfels, and we spent a week there. And my dad just fell in love with Central Texas. He loved the cool air that came up in the evening. Of course, he'd grown up surrounded by salt water. That fresh water felt pretty good to him. And I remember he tells the story. He told my mom, someday we might buy a little property here. Well, the business allowed him to do that a year later. And where we live today is on that original 300 acres across the Blanco River. And 10 years later, we would come to move to San Marcos and Hays County and make this our home. The other thing that my dad did a few short years after that was to discontinue the roofing company and really to concentrate just on McCoy's building supply. This is a photograph here of our fourth location in Webster, Texas. Again, the plan there was not a big selection of products, but core building products. We, at that time, really, there weren't the big box stores and so forth, and we existed with hardware stores that had a lot of the inside kind of products. The lumber yards at that time were really concentrated on new construction. And so we were niching our business, if you will, which was really special. And that's the business that my brothers and I, as we were encouraged to work in our stores growing up, that my brother Mike and my younger brother Dennis and I all grew up in. To give you a little idea, my sister Brenda, Mike, Dennis, and I, we were all first generation to go to college. That was significant to us. We all got married early. We all started having kids early. In a pretty short period of time, my parents had 10 grandchildren. And that was also special. I did marry my high school sweetheart, Bryan. Watan and I met at age 15, broke up in high school, but got back together right after that. And, it was busy times. There is no doubt about that. I think the thing that I want to do is slow down here for just a minute. And you all might relate to this, certainly, and in fact, I know that you will. Any family business, any small business, any family is going to suffer from losses. We all have losses. They can be personal, they can be relational, they can be financial losses. And for us, at least, in 1985, my younger brother, Dennis, passed away in one of our airplanes. And that really hit our family very deeply and hard. And I guess to give you a little idea about where we were in 1985, we had grown our business from the year I graduated in 1975. We did $14 million worth of business. I helped open our 12th location. By the time my brother had passed away, we had grown to over 50 locations, and we were approaching, by the end of the 80s, about $200 million in sales. A lot of activity there. And I remember thinking this. Mike and I were then left. I'm not going to speak for my brother, but I think he definitely had similar feelings. It's like, well, there were 3 brothers in the business, and now there are 2. So what do you think? My thought was, well, I just got to work a little harder. And interestingly too, working harder was actually a good way to cope for a loss that we had been dealing with, of course, as a family. In other words, if you're working so doggone hard, you don't have to really feel as much, if you will. And as we got married in '76, I just love to tell this story to people because it's appropriate that we do. By the time my wife and I got to year 15, we were struggling as a couple. Work came first. I don't blame that on my dad. That was all me making that decision. My wife and I are sitting there struggling and not doing very well. And have you noticed that we really can hurt those people that we love? I know my wife and I definitely got to that place. And I'm not ashamed to say this, and I guess this would be the message, but we needed some help. And we got it. We needed counseling help as a couple. And I guess maybe the rest of that story is just last month we celebrated our 49th anniversary, which is pretty cool. Well, we kept going on the business. This is a photograph, I think, taken around the late 80s. Those of you that are old enough like me, this was the late 80s period, was the Great Recession in Texas. I mean, the unbelievable oil bust, followed by the real estate bust, followed by the banking bust in our state. And yet our company was doing pretty well because we weren't selling new construction, we were doing the repair and remodel side of the business. And so in any event, we managed to get through that period of time. And to give you a little idea of our growth then, by the mid-90s, we had grown to a place of 110 locations in 6 states, and we had enjoyed a great deal of success at that point as we were growing, and the emphasis there was really kind of pushing pretty hard. And I want to pause just a minute a little bit. It would be that because we had that next generation coming up, we did a few things right there. I remember thinking that, and as I talked to my wife one time, I said, I don't want to force our kids into the business, but they need to be exposed to the business. That would be important. And for those of you that own your own businesses, I think that distinction is really important. So I remember when our daughter Megan, she might have been 8, 9, or 10, she wanted one summer to tag along with me as I was making a visit, which would be out of any typical week, visiting a couple of our stores. And, when she said that, I knew exactly where we were going to go that day because at that time in McCoy's, we needed to go to Brownwood, Texas. And there's Megan there with one of our salespeople, Earl Jones. But in Brownwood, that happened to be the one location that was being managed by a woman in our company. And I wanted to make sure that when Megan walked in the doors of the first McCoy store visiting with her father, she would see a woman in charge. And again, we didn't exactly make our kids work in the business, but I will tell you, when they were in junior high and high school, we told them that we were not going to buy their first car. And so if they wanted to buy their first car, they'd have to start collecting and saving up some money. And here's a photograph of our son Reed and our daughter Megan there. And again, it's not like they worked all summer and all those things, but they put in enough time to at least understand some of the essence of our business. But I think more importantly, too, would be to understand the people that work at McCoy's and our customers at that time. And I'm really proud of that. And I'll tell a little more about that story later. So as we were growing and life was pretty doggone good, my father, Emmett, who was a great businessman, by the way, he stood for integrity. He was such a hard worker. He was very focused. And I'm glad that my first 25 years was really working under his direction. But I can tell you that the older my brother Mike and I got, the more tension was developed between the two generations. Like, the older you get, you just got your own ideas on how to do things. And I'm glad that he retired about that time for 2 reasons. One is he and my mother then got really involved in philanthropy. My dad was good at making money, but he really enjoyed also investing in things that could make a difference in the communities that we serve. And the other reason I'm kind of glad that he retired around 1997 was because we were dealing and starting to really get impacted by these guys. When Home Depot and Lowe's started growing many, many years ago, of course they went to the biggest cities, then they went to the mid-sized cities. But when they started coming to places like Kerrville or Mount Pleasant or Brenham or Brownwood, that was our sweet spot. And it really, really impacted us in a really, really big way. And so when that happened, my brother Mike and I, with our team, decided that we were going to hold on to as much of the walk-in business that we could, and we still work to serve the walk-in customer today at McCoy's. But we needed to add some new business. And for us, that was going to be independent home builder business, the new construction side of the business that we had not really catered to. And all kind of changes that we brought to the business during that time. We added credit, we had expanded our product line, we needed to upgrade our technology. We felt like that we had to focus on serving all three classes of our customers. And then also in the chaos of that also, we ended up closing 25 of our 110 locations over a 6-year period of time. I say that to share with you is that, especially when I'm around business students, I think sharing stories that we were failing in a lot of our markets. And I think at the same time, I felt like we had an opportunity to keep working on our brand. But I so appreciate and love my brother Mike, but we had a hard moment. Again, I'm talking about family business. He came to me in the fall of 2000, and he said, "Bryan, I'm not certain that we've really got a future, and I think we need to market the company." And I so respect Mike's opinion, and I love him dearly still, and we have a strong relationship today. But we spent the rest of that year just trying to almost convince each other what we needed to do. And I'm really proud of our family because we just kept coming to the table to talk and try to work through that. My advice for any of you in family business would be to say, nothing ever gets accomplished when we lose our temper, we raise our voices. We worked hard to try to get to a place as to what to do as a family. And for us, that solution would be that my branch of the family gave up a majority of our real estate so that my sister's family and my brother's family could then have investment income. My branch of the family took our operating company. We assumed the payables, we assumed the bank debt, and as my daughter Megan likes to say, I'm not a true entrepreneur by any stretch, but that was a pretty big entrepreneurial moment, if you will. And I just remember thinking at that time, our brand had some value, and we could coexist with these guys and others in the market if we really applied ourselves. But I also had this feeling too, that just operations alone or a business strategy alone wasn't going to be enough. And while we had a strong culture under my father's direction, we didn't have the culture that I felt like we really needed. And by that I mean, I want to describe it this way. We needed a culture where we learned in our company as team members to truly serve one another. And then we needed a culture that really was truly interested in serving our customers. And it was so interesting because I had a good friend up in Austin, Dr. David Ferguson. He's a pastor and counselor and kind of had his toe in all kind of things. And I know David was doing some work with some of the Austin tech companies then in the late 90s. And I said, "David, could you help us work on some management and leadership training for our team, because we really need a stronger culture that's more relationship driven." And it was out of that internally that he helped us develop what we call, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one slide just real quickly. We like to say at McCoy's, and our daughter Megan, when she came on board about 20 years ago, was significant in this, but we like to say at McCoy's when we wake up this morning that we are at our best when we make life easier and more fulfilling for those who build. And that purpose statement is important because the easier part is all the operational things that we need to do in business to earn a right to be in business. But we say the more fulfilling piece really is then, what is the experience that the customer gets when they're interfacing with McCoy people? But that training, we would go on to call it as business as unusual. So what is unusual about BAU is what we call it internally. And essentially it is this. we would say, and we mean it with a lot of conviction, that the people of our company and the relationships that we have, we value every bit as much as the profit that we make and the productivity that we strive for. And for us at least, that meant, and because we had so much complicated our business to be able to compete, we needed highly connected teams that were caring for each other. Business as unusual, for us at least, meant that we were going to learn how to truly serve one another and get excited about serving our customers, which is important. I love this quote by Simon Sinek. He says, "Customers will never love your company until the employees love it first." And there is no doubt that that would be true. For us, though, some of the things that my wife and I learned in counseling would be that just some top 10 relational needs that we have. We have this need, all of us, for attention and appreciation and approval and acceptance and affection and support and respect and comfort. What's so fascinating about that is when I started thinking about the culture changes that we needed, well, that's what we needed more of at McCoy's. And I tell you what, the first time I sat in a room about this size filled with our management team, the majority of which were men running McCoy lumber yards, and I started talking about these relational needs, they were probably wondering what I had to drink or smoke. And then also, too, I want to say this, I saw the eyes roll back. And, I'm not a super dynamic person, but people can really misjudge the fact that I really can dig in, because I felt like this idea of changing our culture was really, really important. What's so special for me, at least, I started with my senior team. There's a lot of things in business you don't want to push from the top down, but I'm going to tell you, culture had better be that one. And then, so we worked really hard on that. And then the other thing, too, that's so important, and sometimes in small businesses, I think, or private business, we forget about this, but we all need to keep growing, okay? And so as we launched this path of our BAU training, I learned a lot of things about myself. We did some of these surveys or instruments to give you some targets on where you needed to grow. One of those instruments tested all of our management team, and there was one person in our company that tested the highest in dominance. And on this particular test, 50% would be like ideal, and somebody in our company, of all of our team that took that test, scored a 98. And that was me. And really, y'all, at first I didn't really want to believe that because I'm too nice a guy, right? But I was a sneakily dominant person. And I really needed that feedback. I'm going to tell you another thing that I learned. I'm not a high change person. I don't wake up every morning just thinking, what can we change at McCoy's? And that's not good for a CEO, the job that I had for the second 25 years in our company. So I'm learning now that I need to be listening to other people. Another quick example, those of you that have been to B School or you be familiar with 360 feedback, that's when you're really asking from those that you lead or your team, kind of give it to me. My team gave it to me. I wasn't a perfect manager by any stretch, and I needed to grow in teamwork and resourcefulness because I had grown up really being the answer man, but my team wanted to really be a part of the process. And so with some of those changes, that was important too. Even conflict. When you have conflict in your business, one is expect it. Number two is it's kind of healthy to know that a lot of conflict comes up just because people care. And how we deal with conflict gets to be really important. That's a part of our equipping as well. But when I talk about business as unusual or BAU, for me, it's like, okay, what does that tangibly look like? So we started working on some of that. So let me give you a couple illustrations, if I may. It was about a few months in as being the sole CEO of our company, I realized people like to to be acknowledged for their tenure, and people like to be acknowledged on days like their birthday. So I got our HR department, we call it people development, to talk to our IS department. And for the past 25 years, every morning, we get an email in the middle of the night that gives on the left side today of our 3,200 plus team members. These are the people that had birthdays today. And over on the right are the people that are celebrating a company anniversary. This is this morning's. So this morning, as I'm looking at that list, and Leonard Martinez is celebrating 27 years with our company, it was so easy to send him a message. Leonard, hey, good morning, this is Bryan. I hope you're having a good start. Congratulations for your 27th year at McCoy's. And thank you so much for being, such a strong part of our leadership in the field, which is the jobs that you hold are so key to our company. We're really grateful for you. Hey, I hope you have a good day. Bryan. I promise you, men and women, that took me about 30 seconds. But I've known Leonard his whole 27 years with our company, and also I have a great deal of respect for him. When we convey things like respect and appreciation and land them and do it consistently with people, that's celebrating people. I'm realizing now, because I sat in the back of the room, my next illustration is not readable for you all, so let me just give you a little hint here. This is a letter that I wrote to Judy Akers. For well over 30 years, she managed our mailroom at headquarters. She's an awesome woman. And when I realized that Judy was going to retire on a week that my wife and I were going to be on vacation, I thought, okay, we went to lunch with her a couple weeks before her last day, but, the send-off was going to be important. So to me, at least, it was a privilege to write a letter that had some important content to a very special lady at McCoy's. We like to say it like this: we need to give people strokes for what they do, but we really need to value who they are. And for me, at least, to craft a letter that talked about Judy's strength and what she meant to our company for all that length of time, that was not a chore for me. That was a privilege to do. We talk about this whole idea, we think, in our training can spill over into our personal lives, but let me just give you a little example there. I mentioned my brother Dennis. He was married to Cindy at the time. Cindy lives in Austin, my sister-in-law. At the time of my brother's passing, they had two girls. Kristen was 3 years old and Lori was 1 year old. And Lori was the youngest of 10 cousins that grew up here in Central Texas. Today she's married to Caleb. She lives in California, which kind of breaks my heart sometimes. But do you know what? The way I, many ways, try to connect with her, and by the way, she just had, early last week, her 5th baby. We just got a new family member in our company, which is so cool. But every month that I finish with Texas Monthly, I send it to Lori in California with a little note on the front, reminding her that her uncle, Bryan, is thinking about her and loves her and her husband and their gang. And then also, too, I want her to be remembering her Texas roots, because she is looking like she'll be in California to stay. This Sunday is Father's Day. If you're a dad, raise your hand. Hey, way to go, guys. One thing that I've learned in the business world, that comfort is a huge need, and sometimes we don't really know how to deal with that, but it happens all the time. I know for me, at least, over the last 6-7 months, every time I learned about somebody in my circle at McCoy's or outside of McCoy's that had lost their father, I just jotted it down on my planner. I've already connected with all the people on this list about this weekend, because I know this: they're going to be missing their dads this weekend. And for me, at least, it's really, really special. The message, for instance, Chris Pena, he's our assistant manager in Edinburgh, and I know that he deeply misses his father, and And to send him a message along with all the other people on that list was really important to me. Hey, let's use technology to connect with people too. And again, early on in my tenure as CEO, I realized we had a voicemail box system. And do you know, I mean, at least today, as our company has grown in the last 25 years, we must have 600-700 people with a voicemail box. It's management in the store, it's our outside sales team, it's everybody at headquarters. You know, it's a big group of people. So I thought, you know what? That can be my voice in the morning. So I started a daily voicemail. And we're going to talk about sales from yesterday and some of the top stores to celebrate some good numbers and whatever other announcements that we have going on in our company. But we always start with celebrating people. So I thought you might enjoy hearing the voice message from just a few weeks ago that our daughter Megan, who is now the CEO and president of McCoy's, you'll hear the front end of her voice message on this Monday as we lift up people in our company.
Hey, good Monday morning, McCoy's team. This is Megan. Hey, I hope your morning is off to a great start. I have a ton of great news to share and people to celebrate, so stick with me this morning. We are starting with a 20-year milestone anniversary. It's Mr. Raul Lopez, our store manager in FAR, and Raul, we are so excited to make it official today. Happy 20th anniversary. His regional manager, Manny Gonzalez, says this: for the past 2 decades, Raul has been more than just a leader. He's been a constant source of support, wisdom, and generosity to everyone around him. Whether it's stepping up to help and mentor team members or quietly going the extra mile, Raul's willingness to serve never goes unnoticed. He's also known for something we all love, his generosity in feeding the team. Whether it's organizing events or simply treating the team, Raul finds joy in bringing people together. And on top of all of that, he's a devoted family man whose care and commitment at home reflect the same values he brings to work every day. Manny adds, I'm so grateful for his friendship, service, and leadership. And Raul, we are all celebrating your 20th anniversary. All right, also celebrating a milestone 15-year anniversary is Greg Buck. Greg is our level 3 yard supervisor in Las Cruces, and his store manager, Nate Rouse, says this: Greg is one of the best yard supervisors I've worked with. He is reliable, hardworking, and organized. He's on top of everything that happens in the yard, and I know the yard is in good shape and all customers are handled with great customer service. He's always willing to help and mentor anyone and is an integral part of our Las Cruces team. And Greg, that is the truth. Happy anniversary, sir. Thank you for 15 years of service today.
Okay, Megan would go on then to talk about sales and all the other things going on a Monday morning, but boy, we treat those milestone anniversaries importantly, and that means, I mean, you can count on it. Every 5 years, you're going to get lifted up just like that. One of the things that we can do in business too is work on our vulnerability. When I was 16 years old in 1971, I really wanted to drive a 1969 Mustang. What I could afford was a used 67 Volkswagen Beetle, which I drove in high school and my first year of college. So a few years ago then, this is what prosperity will do for you. I bought my Mustang, and it was the fastest one that was a production. We're talking about a GT500 Shelby Cobra. And it is my Saturday weekend chore car, and I love running chores. On one particular Saturday, I came in, parked the car outside because the garage door was not working, so that was fine, and I went in. I was going to pull it in and forgot. And then this was when my mother was still living, and I would always go to see her on the weekends around 4 o'clock. If you went to her house at 4, it was wine time every day. So I hit the back door in the carport, jumped in my truck, I put it in reverse. You know what happened. Yeah. Okay, I just want to tell you, I'm a pretty positive guy, okay? So after a few choice words to myself, I said, Bryan, I can afford to get this thing fixed. I don't think my integrity is going to let me report this to the insurance company. But I was a little upset, I got to tell you. But that weekend, I got to thinking about one thing, and that is this. This is an object lesson for me, but I can tell you with about 500 McCoy trucks on the road every day, 6 days a week, we always have at least one backing up property damage accident that costs us a lot of money. So on Monday morning, I had 3 different photographs of this accident. I went to our risk and safety department. I said, guys, I want every single driver to see these pictures, and I want you to tell them what the boss did when you throw that truck in reverse and you don't look back. Now, my thought about all that is to say, for those of you that are in charge, own your businesses or managers, when you screw up, I want to tell you, your people love that, okay? So just go ahead and be vulnerable about it, which would be important. Hey, today our company is run by our daughter, Megan McCoy Jones. We've had the chance to work together for right at 20 years now. She became CEO 3 years ago. Her brother there, Reed, had a naval officer after graduation, and then became a State Department and Foreign Service officer for a number of years. But I think just his exposure to the business, and then also my daughter-in-law wanting to quit moving. Reed came back 10 years ago, and now he runs McCoy Remy Ranches, our West Texas operation. He runs our real estate at McCoy's, and he supports his sister very, very well. I want to say this for our spouses. We wouldn't be where we're at today without my wife, Watana. I'm going to tell you, she went from resenting our business at year 15 in our marriage to becoming really the best cheerleader that I could ever have. And it's only because of this. It's not like I was working a whole lot less, okay? But more, it was the attitude that she and the family was going to come first, even in the midst of a very dynamic business. Today we have a lot of fun just either building new stores like this one in Alvin or remodeling our locations. What we love to do is put a complete hardware store inside, wrap it with a complete lumber yard, and it allows us to compete with both our big box competitors as well as national lumberyard chains like BFS and 84. And then we just work hard to go backwards from the customer. So a few years ago, we bought a distribution center in Burnett. We went from 3 acres to 30 acres. This allows us to bring product in at the very lowest possible prices by rail. And again, that is the idea of passing on that savings to our customers. It was 25 years ago that we knew that we needed a millwork solution. We had never been in manufacturing, but we started small and kept growing. Today, this is our 100,000 square foot New Braunfels millwork facility and such. And our footprint today would be these 3 states with our distribution centers and such. And I got to tell you, I love doing business in Texas. I'm grateful that we've had the opportunity as a family to overcome some really hard things, just like every business is going to get to face, no matter what your size is. But this I do know, small business, private business, family businesses are so important to the future of our state, and I just applaud you all for that. And it's been such a pleasure to be with you all today. Thank you very much.